we should adopt reasonable conditions here that aren't unduly restrictive, that don't contain definitions that we can't understand. Let the process work. And I think that if certain aspects of this need to be tweaked, we can easily do it under the special permit provisions protecting all the neighbors. So that basically, and I also think that I know Mr. Lipkin didn't seem to agree with me, but I really think that restricting the weddings to premier memberships of the HNE is really it's a beneficial condition for the neighbors, because I think you have much more control over those people. You're not dealing with unknown personalities. You can get a better idea as to the type of wedding that's going to be conducted, and making sure that the wedding is an appropriate type of wedding that fits in with the Eustace estate and the neighborhood, and not somebody who's going to do a reggae wedding, some crazy wedding that's going to disturb everybody. So I think there are enough checks and balances here to come to a sensible solution. So that's, in a long-winded way, those are my thoughts. I think we can make reasonable conditions here, keep them on the general side. In my estimation here, I do not see a reasonable likelihood that there's going to be a lot of contested issues dealing with those conditions. Mr. Mullen, do you have anything to say?
I want to talk about the weddings, but I don't want to talk about it right now. I want to talk about a couple other things. I wasn't suggesting that we adopt the DEP regs into the permit. We don't know anything about that. I think the regs apply, because they only apply if it's a parade, a public gathering, or a sporting event for which a permit has been issued. It's not a public gathering. There's been no suggestion that there is a public gatherings. And my point is, I'd like to stipulate that that's the standard of noise that we're trying to meet, rather than have something be reasonable or unreasonable. And since the Commonwealth has said it...
Well, then you're requiring people to go out and do scientific testing at tremendous expense.
No, you're just saying, look, we have a noise ordinance, we have a noise bylaw, we have a noise...
How can you determine it if you don't have engineers, the fancy engineers, charging all kinds of money to determine what the decibel level is?
I wouldn't be concerned if the applicant came and said, you know what, we're subject to this, just like everybody else. Then you are. But there's been testimony here that suggests that they're not subject to it. I don't agree with that. I think they are subject to it. I think all private functions are subject to the DEP noise guideline. And I have no idea why you wouldn't be, you know? So I understand there may be a permit issued for the wedding or for the activity, but that's not the kind of thing that's accepted in this. These are public gatherings. They're really concerts and games and parades and things like that. So what I'm thinking about, it's not a big issue, I don't think, because ultimately this will probably be the standard should this be an issue, is trying to define what's reasonable and what's unreasonable. And it seems to me that this already does it for us.
Well, it may, and if it's you can certainly notice that, you certainly can reference it, but I just want to be careful that somebody who has a noise complaint doesn't think they have to go out and hire some fancy testing firm in order to prove their case.
No. So let me put it another way. Another way to address this is you could state that there'd be a restriction on unreasonable noise, and that what's deemed to be unreasonable is in the regulation. You could do something like that.
You could. I just don't know whether the regulations are applicable to weddings. I have no expertise in this area.
And how do you know what's reasonable and what's unreasonable?
I think what's reasonable and unreasonable depends on what Mr. Shillingford tells us he can hear from his house, what the police officer has to say who's right there, what other neighbors have to say. And I assume if there were a lot of complaints, they're going to turn down the noise.
Yeah.
I would think the police officer would can't you calm this down a little without taking out a decimal meter, a decibel meter to test what the noise is? I don't know.
Okay, let's talk about a couple other things. We didn't talk about no use of Chestnut Run in the, I know there was testimony to it, but to the extent that there are conditions on it, I think we should.
Well, I think that's basically agreed to, and I think the only thing that Mr. Lipkin mentioned is that some of the staff that takes care of the grounds
Right.
may have to use that,
Right.
and that's certainly fine, because apparently is it the Brookwood or Brookdale Farm up there uses this particular road to have their
Okay,
tractors
so
and other
with the
things
staff
up.
exception. On the use of the,
I'm sorry, what do you need?
on the use of the parking, they're asking for approval on the numbers, 13 behind the carriage house and 48 in the rear.
Correct, plus over.
I don't think there's any disagreement on those numbers. to the
We
best
just
of my
haven't talked
knowledge.
about it, so I want to get that on the record.
Yep.
And that the parking lots will be constructed in accordance with the requirements of the bylaw, because the bylaw gets into details on how the parking can be built. You're aware of that?
Yes,
Bob?
I am, sir.
Yeah. So that was in the building inspector's letter. We didn't really talk about that, but I think we should note that for the record. And the same with respect to the removal of the crushed stone, which, given the size of the property, is small. I think the bylaw is really intended for small lots, but I want to make a comment on that. And that the uses as determined, as approved, or as in the special permit would be as set forth in this drawing, because there are some important differences here, or modifications, including that new curb cut on Canton Ave,
Correct.
scenic byway, so that the visitors will be coming through the new curb cut rather than through the gatehouse.
Correct.
Except for to get to those 13 parking spaces behind the gatehouse. Yeah. Okay. On the term, I think that, I had said earlier the 5, I think that's great. But
By the way, can I just say one thing, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Because just so that the people out there understand, even though there's a 5-year term, if the conditions are violated on the second day of this special permit, you've got the right to go to the building inspector, to go to the police department, to file a complaint with the Board of Appeals. And I'm sure Mr. Hill is not bashful about doing so. So you really don't have to wait 2 years or 5 years to do it. This is an ongoing, active process, and if you feel that the conditions aren't being met, obviously the most reasonable thing would be to talk to Mr. Sheffield, talk to Attorney Lipkin, talk to Joe Prondak, and bring your grievances to him, and hopefully it would all be worked out. But if it can't be worked out for whatever reason, you've got the absolute right to file a petition for enforcement of those regulations and conditions with the Board of Appeals. So you don't have to wait a year, 2 years, 6 months, or 2 weeks. I'm sorry, Jeffrey, go ahead.
I agree. That's the way it would be. If we're going to draw the distinction between weddings and everything else, that's terrific, but that's not what I heard.
From whom?
I didn't hear that from anybody. I heard.
Mr. Lipkin's suggestion was that it's an event where you have amplification of sound.
Right.
That's the trigger mechanism.
Right. And sometimes those are weddings.
And then they say, well, weddings, maybe weddings don't fit within the Dover Amendment exceptions and all of this, but we understand that the charity needs to fund the operation, so we'll agree to 12 weddings, but then they say 1 wedding a month. So, I mean, that's a stipulation that we have here. And the only question is, how many weddings? Do we have 1 wedding a month, or do we allow up to 2 weddings a month with amplification? And we're saying if it's indoors,
Really?
then it's related to the museum. They're not going to have bingo sessions indoors here. It has to be somehow related to the use.
Okay.
But if you want to define it,
I don't.
it's impossible to define.
I don't want to get specific. I like general, but I just thought we were talking about more than weddings. Is it only weddings?
It's principally weddings, is it not?
Yeah, it would be.
That may be
I can't
outside
see
of the
another-
realm
It's
of,
important, right? It's either.
I can't see another reason for having a non-museum sound
Well, no, this is the whole case, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
sure.
I don't want to be out of order, but if they're going to say, we're only going to do weddings, then the permit should say that. But if they might have a party that's not a wedding, then it really shouldn't just be weddings. It should be any of them.
Right, I think
So
the problem being weddings are somewhat unique in terms of the size and the merriment and the, so, I mean, but I think we should specifically deal with weddings because that's something that may not be within the penumbra of what's a.
My guess is that, for the most part, it would be a wedding, and Ms. Vieira can correct me, but I understand Mr. Hill's point. What if someone had a 50th anniversary party? It's not a wedding, but it's a functional equivalent.
Right, your proposed conditions don't limit it to weddings.
Right.
You
I- I
Well,
was-
suggest,
say any
I was
event
trying-
that's amplified, is
I
that
was
what you're
trying-
suggesting?
Right, I thought that's what the concern was, and that's why I went that way.
an outdoor amplification.
Okay. Does that help, Jeffrey?
Well, that's what I thought I heard, right?
Okay, well-
But does it go against the 12? I mean, I think it has to, and it's not just weddings.
Well, it's up to 12 events that have amplification.
right.
Cut weddings out and put events.
Regardless of whether they're related to the museum or not.
Right.
Well, the weddings aren't technically related to the museum.
No,
or
I
not.
understand, but you could have an event related to the museum that says amplification. Could be outdoors,
Yes.
and that would go against the 12.
That would be a
Would go against
bright
the
line approach.
The only exclusion I had suggested for that in my proposed conditions was for the gala-type event, which Ms. Vieira said at the last hearing happened once a year, maybe. I thought
Yeah.
she said something like that.
I don't feel like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk to,
It's not a large number, but it is an essential museum function.
We can live with that, within that number if they give us 2
Yep.
months.
Okay. You still have the.
well, that
full-
kind of makes it 13, right?
Well, it does.
I mean, so I don't like that. I just, that doesn't,
We'd keep it within the 12.
Okay.
Okay.
go ahead, we need to talk a little bit more about this, but
Well, it's almost 10 o'clock, so let's see if we can talk and move on before we fall asleep. I don't want to bring everyone back here for another hearing to discuss these conditions.
So we talked about the other conditions to be issued on the special permit, and we've talked about each of the 4 matters for which relief has been asked for the board.
Yep.
And we've conditioned this potential special permit in a number of ways. There are at least 6 terms that I wrote down. But just to be clear, what we're hearing and what the board is talking about is permitting the use of the museum for up to 12 outdoor sound amplified events per year, 1 per month.
Including galas.
Yes, but 2 per
2
month.
per month.
Up to 2 per month.
And that would include galas.
Okay.
You don't have to say that, right? It includes everything.
That's right.
No, I know. I don't want to include gala. I want, it's everything. Every event.
Everything. Includes everything.
Gala, wedding,
Even funerals.
Bruno, Baron, the Baron Hugo, you know, Bob, all the
Yes.
events you go to.
Yep.
So,
I'd object to that if I were you, Mr. Sheffield.
Baron Hugo
Because you
events.
shouldn't be
He was
critical of
playing
Mr.
at the totem
Sheffield
pole on
because
my
he
first
enjoys
date.
good music.
Mr. Leonard, he was playing at the totem pole on my first date with my wife.
Good for you.
I'll hear from the other members. I've talked enough.
Mr.
I
Lundbaum,
always like to defer to the wealth and breadth of experience and knowledge of the chairman. And I take a lot of his comments to heart here. I think we do need to defer to the reputation and experience of the applicant when we're trying to define these things. And I think, in my mind, I am close to where I want to be with regard to the conditions. And as the chairman said, if a problem arises, there's always the ability to seek a hearing, to seek enforcement, and I don't think we need to get caught up in, as the chairman said, the minutiae here. Don't define these outdoor events in particular, and I think the 12 and 2 works, and I think that I think everybody knows that we're going to be dealing within probably a 5 to 6 month window or less when we're dealing with these events, and I think the applicant would live up to the spirit of the agreement with respect to noise, but we have to take a shot here, put some conditions together, and see what happens. I don't know what more we can do.
Mr. Mullen, it's your turn again. Do you want to be heard?
No, I'm interested in what you think.
Well, I think we've basically come to consensus. I think that doing the 12 events without definition is as long as it's with sound amplification, I think is a condition that's easily enforced.
What is the condition?
The condition is that the applicant can have 12 outdoor sound amplified events per year, so long as the noise caused by the amplification is either unreasonable so as to constitute a nuisance, or, as you've suggested, violates the DEP regulations.
Is that what it's going to say?
Yes.
Is that what you suggested?
Something to that effect.
With the
yes.
either or in it?
Well, yes. How else could you categorize it?
No, I think that would be good. I mean, I think that I would like
It
that.
certainly is. The DEP regulation could be evidence of unreasonable noise, but I don't think we should say that's the test we're going to apply. I think the test should be a more general test, and I think.
Good.
I think it's
That's
going.
better.
I think it's going to end up with a policeman at the wedding saying, "Hey, calm down, guys. This is making too much noise,"
I know.
and not going out with
Let's
testing
talk about
devices.
weddings. It gets confusing. We're not
The
talking about
events.
Weddings are emotional. You should pay for some weddings, and you'll
I have
understand
3
it.
boys.
You have to admit, this is a spectacular
Plan it that
location to have a social event.
Yeah, yeah. So with all the conditions we've previously stated, you've got 12 outdoor sound amplified events per year,
Yes,
2 per month,
yes,
on the condition that they not provide unreasonable noise, provide noise that is either unreasonable or
or violate.
or violative of the DEP standard in 310 CMR. No.
Well, why don't we just say violative of other applicable sound regulations? I don't know whether that's applicable. You think it is. If you show me some authority, I'll.
It's only not applicable for parades, public gatherings, and sporting events.
So it's applicable for parties at my house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The DEP is regulating
The town relies on that.
how loud I can
That's when
play
the
the radio
policeman
at my
comes, he
house.
points to the regulation to which Bob referred.
Okay. Then what does he do? Take out a...
I don't know, I haven't been to your
a
house.
little, does he take out a testing device and... You'd
I'd like to go sometime,
You'd need a
actually.
sound...
That raises
I'm
another
going
issue.
I'm going to buy Bob
long have
Quinn's
we known
house.
each
That's what
other?
and I'll be subject to the noise. But no, seriously, what you need an engineering firm. You'd need the testing and a sound engineering firm in order to apply that standard. Nobody's going to do that unless the neighbors think that they're not getting the satisfaction they deserve, and they want to quantify what they believe is the unreasonable noise.
All right. I think it's fine if you said that the noise must be, it can't be unreasonable.
Yep.
And if we have reference in the decision to a discussion about that will be an issue, that could be an issue about what we talked about, whether or not that applied or didn't apply. We should just take notice that there was a discussion about the DEP noise regulation in the decision.
Right.
Fair enough?
That's fine. Fair enough.
Sounds good.
Steve?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Steve's on board.
And yeah, I don't have any further.
Yeah, then you deal with these issues on a case-by-case basis, and we're not making decisions and drafting such technical conditions that we have no application of fact. The applicant has no track record, except one of cooperation and hopefully great success. Mr. Hill, did you want to say something?
If I may,
That-
He's acting like
I
it.
see. Sorry, bad habit. I think I see where you're heading, and I think in light of that, I'd like to just make a couple small requests. First, that the neighbors be given some reasonable notice in advance of events. So I don't know quite how to.
Such
frame
as a
this.
posting on their website or something? Do you do that? Do you post?
I don't know what events he means. It means the 12 events?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
The weddings, the special events.
Outdoor amplified events.
Exactly.
Yes.
So maybe there could be some communication to a designated person in the neighborhood.
Let's-
7 days in advance, something reasonable. So that we know in advance, when these are gonna happen, if people wanna get away for the weekend or something like that, they have that option.
You have a website? Is this facility going to have a website?
Yes, it will be on our website. We wouldn't put someone's rented for special events on our website, but we could certainly communicate with the neighbors.
And presumably it's gonna be scheduled.
It's safer if you put it on your website, if you just said wedding Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 5 or something. But
It sounds like they're gonna be scheduled pretty far in advance, so maybe
Well, I
they
think-
could,
I think
they could
that's
send
right.
us an email with a schedule for the summer, and then we'd know when the dates are.
They
Yes.
have our emails. We can do that.
Okay.
They should give us a contact person who they'd like us to notify.
I think Mr. Lipkin's right. Why don't you provide at the appropriate time a contact person with an email address so they can be contacted?
Sure.
Okay.
But can we just put that in the decision?
Yes.
Condition that the neighbors would be given reasonable notice?
You got to do them both. You got to
7
put
days.
both in.
Yes.
You got to do both. You've got to say that the neighbors will provide a contact person, and that contact
Oh, yeah,
person will
sure,
be notified.
absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's got to work both
That's
ways.
fine.
And what's the time frame?
Just put me in there as the initial contact,
No,
and we'll
don't
just
put a
substitute.
lawyer in. Don't put a
for us.
lawyer in.
No, we'll just substitute somebody else in, and we'll
Okay.
figure out who it is. And
That's fine. 14 days? Yeah, I mean, what's reason? Is that fine? 14 days in advance, how's that?
Great.
Okay, fine.
So that's the first. The second, it'd be helpful if,
Well, let me ask you, on this thought, I know that I'm just probably violating a rule here. Is it a good idea to have the neighbors have a point of contact for each other? Is that a good idea or a bad idea? Does that help or hurt? In other words, they're going to be more than just, issues, right? There's going to be more than just notices. Should it say that the neighbors will provide the name of a person with whom the applicant can deal, or is that?
But how's that enforceable?
Yeah,
Because
okay.
we don't have an organization. The neighbors are
All right.
not organized.
I know.
That's why
I
I
know.
thought posting something
Yeah.
on the website of the charity would be notice to everybody.
We'll leave it at the point where you'll provide neighbors will provide a contact person and notice of special events, the types of events about which we spoke will be provided not earlier than 14 days in advance.
and we'll
Fair
worry
enough.
about our communication.
That's
Great.
fine.
Okay, terrific.
That's our problem.
Does that work for you?
Not later than.
Not later. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, that's right.
And Mr. Hill, you had another issue.
Number two, can we have the applicant submit a revised plan that actually shows the location of the tent stage area? Because I'm just concerned, Mr. Chairman, that
Well-
what they've shown, what they're describing today may not necessarily be what happens 3 months from now. They might
No,
move the
that's
stage.
going to be right. That's why I
That's
referred
why
to
he's got
that.
it for the record.
That doesn't show
But it
the
doesn't show the tent.
Not on there, though.
location, and I think that falls under the framework of micromanaging. The tents aren't always gonna be the same size, and it's kinda like speaker location. We'll see what works out. There's not that many places that are flat on that property and close to the bathrooms that are gonna be in the Welcome Center. So we know in general where it's gonna be. There's a little loop road just near that, near the Welcome Center, and it's gotta be there, because that's where the bathrooms are gonna be.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, just in my defense, I think this is the real critical issue is what is the sound source? The sound source is gonna be amplification. That's the condition, the prerequisite that Mr. Lipkin had asked the board to adopt. So I think it's not unreasonable for us to ask, where is that sound amplification going to be in the property?
And I sketched it out for you where it's gonna be in general, but we didn't have it put in. It's not gonna be on a fixed pad. The size of the tent's gonna vary somewhat. And I told you in general what the orientation's gonna be, and that's where we think it's gonna be. I mean, I could show you that sketch again if that's.
No, I
any
have the
comfort to
sketch
you.
in mind. In fact, I marked my plan to show your location.
Okay.
Why can't we say that?
Well, we can, but it's a question of what if they wanted to move the tent 50 feet in one direction?
Well, it's going to be generally to the,
But, you know, what if we move
wanna-
it further away from all their houses and it has no impact on them? I think they're so protected by the noise standard.
How about
that
saying
they'll
no,
get it.
no closer than the rear portion of the,
what's the west side?
yeah, is that the west side? Okay, how about saying it's to be no closer than the furthest edge of the west side of the building?
Yeah,
And just keep it
That's
that way.
fine.
So in other words, it's not going to be to the rear of the building, and it's not going to be, it's got to
I
be,
have no idea what that condition is.
that's all right.
What is that proposed condition? I'm sorry.
it's to draw a line
Back up there?
on the back of the building here, and say it won't be any closer to the neighbor's properties than this line in here, just right there.
Yeah,
You can go
It won't
anywhere,
be
we'll
any
put it
closer
anywhere.
To these neighbors?
Yes,
why don't we say it won't be any closer to Chestnut Run, rather than have neighbors all over the
well,
place.
you do.
All around.
I think Mr. Sheffield is right.
And is the west side the side closest to Chestnut Run?
That's what Mr. Mullins says.
The building,
Compass Road.
yeah, it does here. The building kind of, north is kind of like that.
So west is that one.
No, that's east.
Oh,
yeah,
then-
north is
then
that way.
we
That's
want
east.
to say east, don't we?
That would be west.
West.
Well, do you want,
Well, the
front or
tent
rear
is
of the
here.
building? What's that?
Yeah, the tent is going to be right there.
No, I thought the tent was supposed to be in here.
That's where he put it. Right?
I don't think so. Here's where I drew the tent.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, no, he didn't put it there, John. He put it,
Back here.
Oh, then I may have it reversed.
he put it here. Right.
So you're actually over here. Jeffrey, you're correct. So the somewhere over in that area. Okay, so you're saying it won't be,
This has an arrow on it.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's kind of like, you know what you could say?
he said here.
You know what you could say is it just the
John
tent
thought he
won't be
was
any
over here.
closer to Chestnuts
over here.
Run than the museum.
So it's to the south
Say
and the
that.
west, yeah.
Looks like south,
They'd be putting it over the roadway.
Right, okay.
That's
You want
fine.
to do that?
Yeah, because the overflow parking's here,
Yeah.
so it can't be anywhere but here.
Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
that's a good idea, Bob. It would be, this here?
No, it's this, right there.
This is like southwest.
But all
northeast.
all we want to do is draw a line and say, it won't be closer than, it will not intrude back there.
I guess I just don't understand the concern, because you're going to be running into paved area to go over there.
I think he's thinking he doesn't want the tent there.
From here?
Yeah. Right?
I think the concept is that there'd be a line here, so
I should
nothing
ask
this
my
way.
son, who writes for Rolling Stone, about how loud is loud.
That's right. That's right.
I think if you said something like the tent would be proximate to the museum, but will not be located any closer to Chestnut Run than the museum is, I think that covers it, without getting into a directional problem.
That would be fine.
Does it matter?
Yeah. But if this edge creeps over to the museum, he doesn't care, but you're going to be barring that.
Oh, then the closest point to Chestnut's Run.
Yes.
Closest point of the
Yeah,
museum.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. That works.
I think that works.
Yeah, no, that works. I didn't understand what you were saying. But I get that.
That works.
Okay. You have anything else? Mr. Hill, Mr. Sheffield, did you have something to
Yes,
say?
I was wondering if you would approve the removal of up to 1,000 cubic yards of fill from the site?
Yeah, that's condition number 4.
Yes, I know you've talked about the bringing into the property the crushed stone. And I think in the discussion, you should take also take recognition of the removal of up to 1,000.
I think I did.
yards.
but-
Okay. Okay. Mr. Hill, you all set?
Yes.
Okay. Jeffrey? Stephen?
All set.
Okay, let me do this. Let me thank everybody for their patience and their tolerance and sticking with this. I think this is going to work. And if it doesn't work, we'll deal with it appropriately. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your hard work and your attention. It's an important issue to the neighbors. It's important to the charity here, and it's certainly very important to the town. I think this is going to be a wonderful solution for everybody. So thank you very much for coming. Have a good night, and we're adjourned.
Thank you. I want to